So, good morning. It's really an honor for me to be here. I'm sorry I couldn't be here in person. I come to you today as an American anti-Zionist Jew and definitely share your commitment to one democratic state, which includes the right of return. I do want to point out that I am speaking as an individual, not here representing any organization that I work with. I think it's important that I start with my conclusion, which is that I am totally sure that Jews can live safely in a Palestinian secular democratic state. But I do need to make clear that it's going to be very difficult. And what I'll try to focus on today is the psychological, cultural challenges of achieving one state. But let me start on a positive note, which is why I believe that this is possible. First and foremost, I think Jews and Arabs, whether they were Muslim or Christian, have lived side by side in Palestine peacefully for 2,000 years. And it was only when Zionist colonialists started coming in that problems began. I have a dear friend who's a Jewish Israeli. His family has lived in Jerusalem for 7 generations. Arabic was their main language, and they never had a problem. And I think that is still possible, even if it will be hard to get there. I have spent time in Palestine. A few years ago, I was in Ramallah and I was visiting a Palestinian friend who had to go to work. And just walking around the streets in Ramallah. I obviously look American. I'm walking around holding this map in English, and a gentleman comes up to me and says, can I help you? Where are you going? I told him. He said, oh, not far from where I'm going. Let me walk you there. And all of my experiences in Palestine have been like that. I have never felt uncomfortable or unsafe walking around in any part of Palestine. And then we look at the model of South Africa. It may not be perfect, but they ended apartheid pretty much without violence. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of adjustment. Some people left, which is their privilege, but the bottom line is it worked. There are plenty of other examples, Kenya, other countries that have decolonized, and it's always difficult, it's always challenging, but it is possible. I also believe that in a secular state, the only opportunity for violence, for control, if you will belong to the state. They will have a monopoly on violence. And as long as they clearly commit to protect all citizens with no exception, no matter who they are or how they present themselves, if it's a woman in a hijab or an Orthodox Jewish woman who wears a wig, they should both be fully entitled to protection. But as I move into the next section of my talk, I do want to start with a bit of a trigger warning, which is that I do not minimize the depth of evil that some of my people are doing to the Palestinian people. I totally agree that the leaders are war criminals, need to be in The Hague, need to be charged with their crimes. But I also look at Germany after World War II. I look at Japan, uh, and I look at South Africa, and I say that the average citizen who may have paid taxes, who may have supported their country, was not punished for what they were, or who they were, or what they did. So while I worry about all people in the region, I'm also speaking as a Jew. I have friends, I have family who lived in Palestine. Some of my family don't talk to me because of my politics, but that doesn't change the fact that I care for them and worry about them. So I hope as I'm speaking, you understand, where I'm coming from. And I totally understand that this is going to be very difficult for all of us. In order to help understand how this came about, I want to talk a little about my personal evolution, which is that I grew up in a secular home. My family was not Zionist. We were not observant Jews, but we were well aware of and believed in our Judaism. I'm old enough that I was a teenager during the Six-Day War. And the Six-Day War made Jews heroes. Rightly or wrongly, we were proud of what our people did. And because of that, I got involved in Zionist youth movements and became a fairly staunch Zionist. Luckily, some of the people that I worked with were also people who knew that Israel's path was not right, who supported Palestinian rights, not to the extent that I realized they should have, but helped me evolve and realize that what Israel is doing is wrong. I worked with a coexistence program of Palestinians and Jews and internationals working on the environment. And that program gave me the opportunity to meet and spend really quality time with Palestinians. And in doing so, I learned what should be obvious, that these are wonderful people living in a horrible situation, and that I need to do everything that I could to change that. I also, because of my coexistence work, got involved with it, and I'm frankly ashamed to say it at this time, with the Jewish National Fund. I did it because they were willing to support the program I worked with. But I also found out in 2010 what was going on in Sheikh Jarrah, and that JNF was actively stealing Palestinian homes. And I very publicly resigned from JVP due to weird circumstances. My resignation was called a resignation of a JVP board member, or of a JNF board member, which made it sound much more significant than it was, but it got a lot of publicity. At which time, people I knew in JVP came to me and said, you belong in Jewish Voice for Peace. You need to support BDS. And I agreed with them and became active in Jewish Voice for Peace. But what I want to help you understand is that Jews, wherever we happen to live, have developed into a very paranoid people. Is it justified? In a way, it doesn't matter because it's what exists. When feelings are deep, ingrained in people, it is hard for them to change. There's a joke about Jewish holidays, which is, what is a Jewish holiday? The answer is, they tried to kill us. God saved us. Let's eat. And, you look at the Old Testament, that is the story of our founding myths, founding stories, founding legends. And then you get to Europe, and, we talk about anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is a Christian, or is an outgrowth of Christianity. And I'm sorry if that offends any of the Christians listening, but the Catholic Church said that we killed Jesus. When I was growing up, kids in my school who never knew what a Jew was said, "Why did you kill Jesus?" And we've lived with that. The Holocaust was the ultimate in anti-Semitism. After World War II, there were millions of stateless Jewish and non-Jewish refugees. Nobody wanted them. Europe didn't want them back. They didn't want to go back to Germany or Poland or Eastern Europe. America didn't want them. So it became easy for the Zionist myth to take over. Again, it's not right, it's not good, but it is our history. Within the US and within Western Europe, Jews became a strong activist lobby. We built on that guilt, and we said, "Oh, we deserve a state." Now, it's all, I won't use the word, you can add your own to it, but the fact is that Israel and its supporters, both Jewish and Christian, because there are more Christian Zionists in the world than there are Jewish Zionists, because of fundamentalist Christian beliefs that, Jews have to return for Armageddon. And we use that power in a terrible, unforgivable way. So what do I hope for? First of all, I hope that BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions, continues to grow and that it works. That, like in South Africa, we can have a peaceful transition. The alternative is horrible for all of our people. I hope that there can be some form of truth and reconciliation process, similar to, maybe not the same as it happened in South Africa. I hope that the war criminals will be tried and dealt with. I hope that there will be respect for and full freedom in a secular state, as the previous two speakers defined it, and that there will be a real, true democracy. And I will close with a quote from a philosopher and abolitionist during the US slavery period, Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "Shall we then judge a country by the majority or by the minority?" And the answer was by the minority, surely. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.